On. And we are recording on Tuesday, August 19th, 2025 at 1:07 p.m. Eastern Time with Mr. William Ramsey. You guys can go to the description. You can find his Twitter. You can find his podcast. And guys, please go to the description. Please go get the energy drink that's sponsoring my podcast. It's the most honest exchange I can do. Caffeine. I use it. It requires no sales. I use caffeine every day. You probably do too. If you like the podcast and you like caffeine, go do the two. And there'll be a QR code and all that good stuff. But to kind of continue the talk from last time, continue-ish from kind of Catcher in the Rye and all of the again, I think as I said, if this was like a screenplay you had written, I'd be like, it's really fun, but I think you're crazy. But it's reality. It's provable U.S. history, and so to kind of jump from there again, and as you just said, naming all these people, we're not even necessarily it does, but we're not exclusively talking about you know, Oswald or something. We're talking about events that have occurred. Well, I guess the first attempt was July. So we're saying within the last 13 months. We're not digging up stuff from 9 decades ago, which time doesn't make things irrelevant, but it's also easier in hindsight and you can look back at that stuff. We're talking the last year. This has all happened. So I'm gonna shut up and I'm gonna hand it over to you, Mr. Will Ramsey.
Tommy, thanks for having me back. Glad to be with
Yes,
you
sir.
again. It's great to talk with you.
Sure.
Yeah, the last show we covered Catch on the Rye. These are all provable things I showed in the books that these guys had it, whether it was Chapman or the guy who tried to shoot Reagan, right? So, interested in that book, which is a very strange book in itself, and 65 million copies have been sold worldwide. But on that same theme, just like you said, I'm going to talk about another film that kind of involves mental states, Cold War paranoia, and something that's fictional that actually reflected itself, in fact, leading up to today. And I think it's these kind of things. This is about an assassin, which is the Manchurian Candidate, which is about a guy, Raymond Shaw, who goes to the Korean War, which was 1950, 1953, and then gets turned into an assassin and is sent out. But he's kind of a programmed assassin, so it involves mind control. Most people would think that that's fictional as well, but there's a lot of evidence that that's factual, and I'll show the evidence if depending how long and how much time and how quick we go through the material. I have a lot of material, I have a lot of videos, but for people who may have forgotten, the Manchurian Candidate was written by Richard Condon, Condon. It's published in 1959. The movie was made and came out in 62. It wasn't seen as a great hit at the time. And then Kennedy was killed in November 22nd, 1963. And Frank Sinatra, who's a very, very close friend of JFK and promoted him and went on the campaign. Sinatra was so close to the Kennedy family and JFK that he took over kind of the festivities for Kennedy and got all his celebrities. So he's kind of like a Hollywood connection. And it overlaps with Marilyn Monroe and a lot of kind of darker stuff involving RFK as well, which overlaps with Manchurian Candidate. Anyway, after the assassination, the movie Sinatra, whose production company made the film, decided to take it out of circulation. So there is a kind of a mystery about the film. It was missing and not shown for 25 years, for a quarter century. And it wasn't until 1998 that it was kind of redistributed to a lot of kind of fanfare and people appreciated it again. And it actually kind of came out, well, not came out, but it was around the time they took it out that two other films were released. One is called 7 Days in May, which also was very close to JFK. Like this film was close to the JFK family. Actually, the decision to kind of greenlight it took place. We know Kennedy was a fan of kind of pulp fiction, of literature, kind of like spy literature, of which this is or should be considered. He liked James Bond, but the okay was from JFK. He gave the green lit, and one of his Democratic allies kind of financed it. And it featured a lot of kind of actors, maybe obviously Sinatra, who was always trying to break into becoming a well-respected actor, but also had Lawrence Harvey, who passed away young, Angela Lansbury, who was in the film Gaslight. If you know Gaslight, that's how we get the term gaslighting, which
Oh.
is happening constantly today. Some people forget that it's actually based on a movie, so the term comes from Angela Lansbury's involvement in this movie Gaslight, where the guy's gaslighting. I can't remember the actress's name, but he's basically just lying to her all the time and making her think she's crazy when he's the manipulative, cunning one. Janet Leigh just came off of Psycho. So these are kind of big time personalities and actors in this film. Two other films that I mentioned that came out around the same time. I mentioned 7 Days of May, but also Doctor Strangelove came out in January of '64, which is, a lot of these guys who are surrounding that we know now were surrounding the JFK assassination were like parodied in that film.
Hmm.
And like LeMay, Willoughby, a lot of these, and Kennedy had fired another guy whose name I can't remember not right now, but so Oswald supposedly took a shot at him. And you'll see kind of strange parallels between the fictional book. I've read the book and watched the movie way too many times, but you'll see strange parallels in this book and real life assassinations, so factual events which can be provable. And it is interesting because Harvey himself, well, not Harvey, but the character Raymond Shaw, goes into the Soviet bloc and comes back out, much like Oswald,
Uh,
strangely goes to Russia and comes out and is supposedly a communist at the time of the assassination. He admits he's a patsy, right? We have film of that, which wasn't readily available at the time, but he was presented as a communist spy. And in my view, he wasn't involved in any way, shape, or form. He was actually moved into place. And I think it's important too, when we go through the film, A Manchurian Candidate, that Oswald had handlers.
hmm.
He was very special in a really strange way. He was 24 when he died, but he was in the military, went to Russia, came back out. Strange amount of money, much like these modern day mysterious characters like Ruth, who tried to kill Trump, supposedly tried to kill Trump at Mar-a-Lago, September 2024. Moving around strange ways, Mangione, Chapman. Anyway, you'll see this kind of same kind of thing with as we go through the film that Raymond Shaw, the character, is a pawn. He's a pawn, much like what you find out these assassins are really pawns. They're seen as independent. They're presented as independent. But a lot of ways, there's nothing, whether it's James Earl Ray, Sirhan,
Yeah. Oswald
Oswald.
had, sorry to interrupt. He had, right, he went and met, I think, in Mexico City with Win Scott, the CIA guy in Mexico City. And then also James, I think James G. I don't know if it was directly him because I mean he was the head of counterintelligence, so technically everything's under his purview. So I don't know if I'm revising history and putting that on him. But there's some I don't know what the name of it is. I forget. But I think it was a 501. We'll just use that as a placeholder. And it's like the highest level of like special observation. And that was on Oswald like 18 months before. Like what in God's name? And he's, yeah, at the time he's 22 and a half. Who is this guy?
And he's around in this Gladio organization
Yeah, the
with
whole
Ferry.
thing. Yeah.
Oh no, if the real history of Oswald will blow people's minds
He's a
because
lone gunman. He was
yeah,
Jason Bourne-esque, if not framed to be seen as that.
a lot of this stuff is covered up. There was a letter he sent before the assassination to E. Howard Hunt that handwriting experts have said this is Oswald. He's asking Hunt what's going on. And Hunt was the known domestic head of the CIA operation who came from Mexico City. That was the number one kind of CIA outpost from Langley was Mexico City because we ran freaking Mexico. They
Probably
like
still do. If we probably still do. In 50 years, we're gonna be like, okay, so granted, the cartels were a CIA organization. Like, that's how crazy this stuff is. It's just
yeah,
after
yeah.
6 decades, you kind of go, ah.
It's really crazy. Um, Oswald, I mean, we're kind of going past the thing I was going to show the film, but it's okay because you'll see the film in context and how smart Condon was and the screenwriters and people in this film. And I think that the film was greenlit to kind of show the public, hey, this is what's really going on behind the scenes, guys. But Oswald was handled. He had actually, there was a book called Oswald and Marina that was written by a woman named Macmillan. And it was just really strange. People like, how were you? She was behind the Iron Curtain in Russia with both of them. And she wrote a book about them. And it's like, wow, this is really crazy that you
This is
guys,
convenient.
yeah, you guys, you met these two people who would have like impact on world history. Turns out she's a full-on CIA agent. The book is a total farce. It's put out to like create this myth of those two together. And it was revealed in these documents, the most recent JFK drops. And a lot of people said they knew that already, but it was confirmed, like in things that she was literally getting paid to write the book. This is before 63, right? I think it's like 61 or 60. He's also at Atsugi Air Force Base. For people who don't know that, the US kept bases after we took over Japan and even in Korea as well. Obviously, we're still there at the 38th parallel. Atsugi was very important because this was the Cold War, and it was after the Korean War, and this is when we were doing the U-2 spy planes. Like Gary Powers was the guy, I think he was flying out of Atsugi. So the fact um, that Oswald is there at that time is very strange, but also this guy, Kerry Thornley, who wrote a book about Oswald before the assassination. So he knows Oswald too for some reason. There's a question whether there's even just one Oswald. That's a whole nother story. Are there two Oswalds? Are these fictional characters? There's really a real person, obviously, but like they had some kind of strange file. Like you said, there were these things. He had his own. We know the CIA had a code word for Oswald before 63. So he was known enough to have, like, Kubark, which is what the CIA refers to itself. He was known to have this kind of like designation. I forgot what his like code name was, but I mean, so Thornley, McMillan, David Ferry, who Jim Garrison, the guy on the trail of the assassins who prosecuted Shaw, who's a member of the Knights of Malta, which I mean, it just gets so dark, but also probably a CIA asset from the beginning. I think that CIA wrote something, we got to help Shaw out because they knew him. He's being handled by all these people, Ferry, Shaw, and then also kind of leading up to the year of 63 and the assassination. Somebody literally drives. I mean, there's a really good movie about her, The Mysterious Miss Payne by Good, I think is his name. But Ruth Payne, who lived in Irving, Texas, of all places, she drives out to eastern US, and on the way back, she drives through. This is all provable. She drives through New Orleans, which is kind of the epicenter of a lot of the stuff they say the staging area for the assassination, and a lot of characters, very murky place, the Big Easy. Picks up Oswald and takes him to Texas, right? And Marina lives with them, and the mother, and Oswald's in and out, and they're fighting, and he's staying at some halfway house. And then all this stuff shows up at her house, like the gun shows up and some writing and all this stuff. What a lot of people don't know about Ruth Payne is she's totally connected. She's like an old Eastern blue blood whose husband works for Bell Helicopter, and
Jesus.
whose best friend, his name is Bancroft, who worked under Alan Dulles. So like Bancroft was one of her best friends was Alan Dulles' mistress in World War II.
Again, it's
This is all provable fact. This may sound kind of strange
no, it's
or
not. I mean, you said Condon. I think wasn't the biggest like official U.S. government ever like official uh panel on UFOs, the Condon Committee.
I don't know if he's related to that. I
I
don't
know, but
remember
still,
that.
just it's not like a normal name. It's not Smith.
Yeah, Richard
It's just
Condon.
as just another factoid out there. It's
Right.
just
So
wild.
this handling thing is real with
Yeah.
Oswald. They tried to kill him when I think he was supposed to get killed by Tippit or somebody when he was leaving
Yeah, he wasn't.
downtown
I don't think he
Dallas.
was supposed to get out of there.
Yeah, he wasn't supposed to get out of there alive. I don't think he was supposed to get out of the theater alive.
Yeah.
So I think he was sent to the theater. And there was a gun that went off in the theater. Somebody tried to shoot him, so there was no way he was supposed to survive the weekend. So Tippit, Oswald, and Kennedy all died in the weekend. Um, by Ruby. I mean, it gets very strange. But anyway, this kind of handle, and we can go into the strange people around Sirhan Sirhan, the woman with the polka dot dress, Raoul surrounding James Earl Ray, and the killings of Ken of RFK and MLK are about 4 months apart, much like the attempted assassination of Reagan and the killing of Lenin. But it all kind of there's weird things that came out of the Cold War culture, much of which Catcher in the Rye and the Manchurian Candidate are definitely out of the Cold War culture. And actually, one of the interesting things that Condon admitted to is that the kind of the lead kind of evil character Angela Lansbury plays, which is the mother Eleanor of the assassin, was based on Roy Cohn. So her husband is based on McCarthy, and McCarthy's advisor's Cohn, and who's also advised Cohn's, who had also Cohn advised was Trump, right? That was one of Trump's closest friends back in New York. And that's a whole nother show, Roy Cohn and his whole story, and he died of AIDS and all this stuff like that. Um, and also Livia. So Livia was, I think, Augustus's mother, and she was kind of like a Black Widow type mother. Like she killed and poisoned people, and she was kind of like the power behind the throne, the real power behind the emperor, and much like it plays out in this book. The book is very graphic. There's a lot of like pretty risque things in the book. The characters are womanizers. And in the book, the mother who becomes this person, played by what's her name, Angela Lansbury, she's actually in an incestuous relationship with her dad, and then she also, while her son is hypnotized, she has intercourse with him too. So there's some really dark like undercurrents of this. One of the interesting things about this is, and so if this was a friend of Sinatra, is one of the advisors, and this is also provable according to my research, and there actually overlaps strangely between our earlier conversation about the catcher, what I call the catchers in the rye in this film, is that Sinatra's friend was a hypnotist. His name was William Joseph Bryan, not to be confused with William Jennings Bryan. He actually ran a school of hypnotism on Sunset Boulevard in LA and hypnotize people to, get them to quit smoking or lose weight. But he was also a very dark character, kind of amoral, and he said that it was very important for him, for him and his subjects to have sexual congress. So, like, he got busted before he died of an early heart attack in a hotel room. Kind of convenient, but he got busted, and this is court records are there. He was brought up on charges of four women who complained that he abused them, and then a fifth claimed he tried to bribe her for $50,000 to shut up. So he was also very close friends with well-known attorneys that people know that overlap with the JFK case. Melvin Belli, strangely, was a civil practitioner, right? He's the king of torts. A lot of lawsuits against businesses and companies, made a lot of money. For some reason, he's closely connected to the mob. Like he wasn't just a hanger-on. He had a lot of mob friends. He was very comfortable with mob people. He somehow gets flown out to Dallas to represent Jack Ruby, right?
Small world.
And he's friends. He's taken courses with William Joseph Bryan, and so has Bailey. So F. Lee Bailey, who's like all over the place, all the way up to OJ. And going back to Albert DeSalvo, which is the Boston Strangler, which is a little piece of this story too. So William Joseph Bryan is kind of like a puppeteer or influencer behind a lot of this, and it gets darker about him. But it's important to remember that William Joseph Bryan is headquartered in Los Angeles. So that's kind of the background. Sinatra's friend, William Joseph Bryan, was a drummer, and they were in the Jim Dorsey band when Sinatra was like starting out, and that's in the 40s. So like their relationship spanned decades, and it's interesting. So Sinatra really is the driving force. JFK okays it; it gets okayed through Hollywood. Sinatra's production company raises $2.2 million to produce and make The Manchurian Candidate based on the Condon book. Half of it goes to Sinatra's salary. So he engineers it to make sure he gets paid $1 million, which is kind of a funny part of the story. But So all these other people get paid. He hires a guy, John Frankenheimer, right? So John Frankenheimer is a TV guy. I think he did a bunch of spots for The Twilight Zone and other kind of like stand-ins, but he actually directs this and then directs after he directs this, he directed 7 Days in May, which is about a military takeover, right? Military
Hmm.
takeover of America. This is exactly what JFK was going through. He had tons of trouble with these military Cold Warriors. He fired people. They were trying, the whole Bay of Pigs thing. Resisted that. There's all kinds of things going on. They were just getting more and more pissed at him. So, it actually reflected reality. He actually went to Hyannisport so that 7 Days in May with Frankenheimer could film at the White House. So there's a scene in 7 Days in May where they're filming the White House. I think it's intentional. I think it's he's setting this cultural thing like, hey, this is like a reflection of what's going on. Like they're literally like resisting the presidential power. And there's a famous speech, and the guy at the end of 7 Days in May, I think, got some kind of award for like really kind of encapsulating what was really at stake. Was it liberty, or are you going to have like this kind of like military dictatorship? Military's overlooked in the JFK assassination. They always say CIA. It was all of them. They all were involved. The mob.
Yeah.
So everybody, they had to be okayed. So it's a very much like Garrison was very smart because he made the connection between the killing of Caesar and the killing of JFK. And the killing of Caesar, if you remember, it was like Caesar took great power. There's the whole Shakespeare play on it. Um, and I think he absolved the thing, but the senators, Brutus and all these other characters, they all conspired to kill him, but they dipped their blood when he was dead, so that that bound them all together to the killing,
Mm.
right? And so then they ran out of the forum or wherever it was, where they killed Caesar and said Caesar's dead, the tyrant's dead, and we all did it. They took credit for it, but that was kind of how they bound themselves together for it. That was their plan. And so I think it was something like that. Something happened behind the scenes where these guys all bound themselves together. And the hit list after the JFK is extraordinary too.
Yeah, you don't pull off a hit like that without all the power brokers given at the very least not stopping it. Maybe you're not involved directly, but you're pulling back your own men. You're not impeding it.
And you keep your mouth shut,
Yeah, you keep your
People
fucking mouth
knew.
shut.
The
Yeah.
people who talked
Well, they
died,
just
like
killed the president.
yeah,
They're not too concerned about you, Bob.
yeah. There was a famous female journalist, what was her name? Milligan or Kerrigan. She got killed. I mean, just the
Oh, the down
list
by the
goes on.
river in DC.
Yeah, that's another one she's
Oh,
associated with that. That was the lover of
yeah,
JFK,
Mary's Diary or something.
Mary Pinchot
Yeah,
Minor, I
her
think.
friends, or I think her like boyfriend and family went to her apartment to try to find her diary, and
Yeah, that's
who
right.
was
Yeah.
there but James Jesus Angleton
Angleton.
walks
Well
out and he's
done.
like,
Yeah.
that'd be like if I died and my family came to like retrieve my podcast and James Clapper walked out.
Yeah,
Oh,
something was going
that's
on.
convenient. That John Brennan walked out of Tommy's apartment. What are the odds? Didn't know he was in town.
I think something happened too when Marilyn Monroe died. They couldn't find her diary, or they wanted her diary,
Well,
if I
no, James
remember.
Jesus Angleton is the one that wanted her tapped, wanted her phone
He
tapped.
oh, okay. He wanted Marilyn Monroe's phone tap.
He wanted her, yeah.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Oh yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, then
Hey,
they're
coincidence.
yeah, and she was with Sinatra, so it like ties into the real history. This film ties into the real history of that era
We have
because she
blurs in.
was at Cal Neva Hotel like a week or two before she was killed, and she was with Sinatra. Who was and that was a known mob like hotel
Yeah.
casino, which is why like Godfather 2 takes place in Lake Tahoe because they're in, they're in Nevada anyway, which is a lot of scenes on Lake Tahoe. But anyway, so like the background of the story, even the background of the film itself is really extraordinary. There's a lot of things going on in the background and lead up of all these characters, all these important because Frankenheimer who directed 7 Days in May and the Manchurian Candidate, will be the one who will drive JFK to the Ambassador Hotel on the night he's shot, supposedly by Sirhan Sirhan, which I don't even think. You'll see the commonality. Sirhan and Oswald are patsies. They're not even involved. I mean, they're close, but they're not the shooters. Somebody else did. A real pro did. Did the shootings of a lot of these guys. So our story about the assassinations is actually the real fiction. The real public stories are the real fiction.
Yeah.
So you see this kind of fiction and fact are often juxtaposed. They're not really what people believe about, like used to believe about Oswald as a lone shooter is totally fake. So there's probably like three or four shooters at kill teams at Dealey
Oh yeah.
Plaza.
Yeah, no, yeah, you don't if you're gonna go for it, yeah. You gotta
Yeah.
go for it.
No, nothing can be left to chance. There was also an attempt to
No.
kill him in Chicago, and then I've done a show on that. They had another patsy in Chicago, and actually JFK got warned by this guy Abraham Bolden, a black Secret Service agent, and Bolden's career was destroyed. And JFK didn't go to Chicago, but for some reason he got lured to Dallas. And that's a whole nother story. Like Johnson was totally corrupt. Really just incredible. I mean, almost like preternatural corrupt person. Like it was
Yeah.
pervaded every pore of his body, like murder, rape, just
Just
incredible stuff.
advancement at all costs.
He had one dream in his life to be president at any cost. So anything that got in his way of attaining his dream was just like that was,
And he died severely depressed.
I would say almost in a way of like Macbeth, like he was crazy and depressed. They spent $1 million on psych people on Johnson at the last part of his life, and they couldn't cure him because he had, I think, almost like Saul from the Old Testament, like he was just tormented. Because his sister got killed.
Well, at a certain point, there's no amount of therapy when the actual issue is you did something consciously. It's very hard to like have a therapist unwind some like childhood trauma or something. That sure, that's but when you orchestrated something and killed someone who not only was a beloved president, but who was a dad, who was a husband, philandering, sure, but a husband, you did that. There's no amount of therapist is gonna they can maybe drug you to cloud nine, but you're not gonna actually you can't be talked, you can't like have it fixed because you know what you did. There's no, you know what I mean? There's nothing to unravel. So you killed someone and
He
you
killed a lot of
intentionally.
people. He's responsible for Vietnam,
Well, I was gonna say, yeah, then there
the
you
slaughters, the
go.
My
Yeah,
Lies of Vietnam, and
yeah,
and making money off of war. Like
yeah. I
he's
don't think.
got blood. He literally had blood of over 1 million people on his hands, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't. I think when you get to the end, I think when you're like a H.W. Bush or so, I think you're probably, and rightfully so. I'd say I think you're probably tormented every second, and when you're, death is always way down the road. But once you're in your 90 and you got a colostomy bag, yeah, you probably start really wondering, oh fuck, is there an afterlife? Because I wreaked havoc here
Yeah,
intentionally.
Johnson really did. He stole every election. I mean, just crazy stuff.
Oh,
Shot.
he
I mean,
assaults secretaries on the Air Force.
oh
Everything.
yeah. Do
He
you ever hear
legitimately
his?
just take his dick out. Yeah.
Yeah, he took
He would do,
Jumbo out.
yeah, jumbo. He called it jumbo. Yeah. Apparently he had a huge dick and he would do that. And he would, I think there's
He
stories of him
he.
throwing steaks
Oh,
at flight attendants because they weren't cooked correctly. Just bare
just
steaks,
horrible.
smack you
Yeah,
on the face.
just horrible
Yeah,
behavior.
man.
Just incredible.
You should feel bad
We used to have like meetings with his whole staff on the
on the
job while he
toilet.
was taking
Yeah.
a dump.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that was just like, I mean, that's like the power, like you're gonna watch me
Yeah.
do this.
That's not depression. That's called justice.
Yeah,
You should feel like this. Fuck you.
yeah. That's why that was the story is like, why are we in Vietnam? And then he took his penis out. Like that was the rationale why we're in Nam. Like that's the
58,000
way he
Americans
thinks.
dead. Yeah.
And he was a really nasty racist too. Like
Oh
he had
yeah,
like a
his
black
quote.
driver.
Well,
What?
is his quote right? We'll have them hard R's voting Democrat for the next 200 years
He had said that,
if
but
we get the Great Society passed. Yeah.
he had a black driver, he would just berate. He said, "You will always be an N. You'll never
Yeah.
change." Just like and use these terms. Like he was from a different part of the South. Like he was from the rural part of Texas, like the early
I spent
frontier
2 years of my
Texas.
life in rural South Georgia. I spent 16 years in outside of Atlanta. I spent two in Valdosta, Georgia, my first 2 years of college. That is a different plant. There's you grow up in Georgia, you go, yeah, you're in the South. I know racism, and then you go down to Valdosta, you go, oh my God. Oh, I mean, jaw on the floor. Like, did you just fucking say that? Like, madness.
Bro, I was in, I lived in DC for 3 years, and sometimes I go to West Virginia or like certain parts of Virginia, and it's not like California. The races do not mix, and the racism is really rough from the white people.
Yeah,
It's like, whoa,
yeah,
like, whoa, like you're
yeah.
really laying it on thick, bro. Like,
It's like
get
some
them.
here's like, and I'm not defending it, but I remember like telling some of my buddies at like UGA, I'm like, you don't know what Valdosta is. Like these ideals you have that are good. We should all get along in equity and segregation or desegregation. I'm like that. It's all well and good. You don't even know what that place is. It's going to Mars and complaining that there's no internet. Like, what are you talking about? It's a rock. It's a red rock. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
all
man, it's
Jay.
different. So that's Johnson, but it's also, I mean, these one of his best friends was J. Edgar Hoover, which should tell you a lot because he's buddies with Hoover, whose whole history is another fascinating history, another story. But what Hoover knew about Oswald and a lot of these people was also very disturbing. Like he had to have known about a lot of these
Well, he was
assassinations.
buddy buddy with Angleton in Jefferson Morley's book, The Ghost, about James T. Angleton. Angleton was super close buddies with Hoover. He would give Hoover stuff that only the CIA could get, international. And in turn, Hoover would kind of, metaphorically or literally, would just kind of give him the keys to whatever you need domestically, because the CIA is not allowed to operate here. So they had a very tight relationship where he was
Supposedly,
like, yeah, yeah, he's, do you need something in China? Yeah, I can get that for you. I'm the CIA. Hey, can I check out your Chicago stuff? Yeah, come on in. Yeah, they're
but this is the milieu. I don't really like that word, but this is the environment. All this kind of stuff took
when you
place. The
draw all
venturing
these
getting
things
into the
together,
region.
what we're
Yeah,
really
yeah.
illustrating and have been for 20 minutes is this giant net. And then when you back out of the giant net, you can't be surprised that the net caught something like
Yeah.
JFK. Yeah, well, okay.
It's like a Hieronymus Bosch like triptych with like all
Yeah,
these other evil
yeah,
characters,
the
and they're
hell and
all over. And
the
JFK walks in there as a 42-year-old,
I'm gonna end the
naive guy.
military industrial.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right,
gonna
dude.
blow the CIA to smithereens. Like
Hey,
what?
God,
They probably
God
looked at it and went.
bless, God bless, and God smiles on you, and I mean that sincerely. But
All
yeah,
his speeches are really amazing. Like, and you have to remember this also taking place in, you mentioned like the racism, civil rights and stuff like that. I think I think was his name, was killed in 63. Russ, oh no. What was the guy who was killed in Mississippi? And JFK was, kind of trying to lessen racial tensions.
I don't remember.
Somebody, I can't remember his name offhand. But and those speeches JFK had too, right? The famous peace speech,
Oh
which
yeah,
is still relevant, guys. The
yeah.
speeches he gave about peace and Russians are exactly what's happening today. Like
Uh,
people don't want peace. There's actually active people who are making money
or
and
the
don't mind filling graves. We filled
they don't give
probably
a
2
shit.
million people in East. You never see it on TV anywhere here. You have to kind of actually actively look for the information of people dying or the graves being filled. But for people who don't know, the US was a big mover in this war against Russia. We're actually the Nazis, believe it or not. It's a
Yeah.
coalition, much like Hitler had back in 41.
Oh
And we
yeah.
tried to topple Russia and
Oh,
failed.
we
So,
want, and his other, right? The very word secrecy is repugnant. It's all
yeah, man.
applicable, and
Yeah.
it's but
That's why this is still relevant, Tommy.
well,
This is
and I
why this
think we've
stuff is
talked
still
about
relevant.
this. Is like, so why are you harping? Well, one, it's fascinating just as a standalone. It's fascinating, but it's also not that we're not talking about Caesar. We're talking this was 60 years ago. My parents remember this, and we almost saw it last summer. Like,
Well said. Absolutely. I actually, I've talked to McBride, who's like a very well-known JFK researcher. You mentioned Morley too, who's been in the news and been in Congress right next to Luna, right?
Really?
I've had more. What?
I don't know. I had him on the show 2020, 2021 several
Yeah, no, he
times.
was in
I've
these
been,
hearings, these JFK hearings with Luna, who was just
oh
on Joe
God.
Rogan.
All
So
right.
he was on there with a couple. I've had a couple guys. I had
Respect.
JFK facts, but more. I've talked to Morley like 3 or 4 times.
He's cool.
Yeah, no, great books, and like you mentioned, Win Scott. He wrote
Win
that book
Scott,
on
Man
Win
in
Scott.
Mexico. Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
quoting. Yeah.
And also Scorpion's Dance,
I had him on for that. I've had him on for all his
Nixon.
books. Yeah.
Yeah, so his books are superb, and his research, obviously. I mean, he's doing great
Top
stuff.
notch.
He was in these hearings, and it's still relevant. Like, how many of these documents are going to come out? What are the real? They've burned so much stuff. They
Oh yeah.
got they.
Oh yeah.
You can't trust the CIA for. I mean, the really important stuff they just torched,
It was
so
never.
you'll never see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a buddy, I had this friend who I still think has the highest IQ of anyone I've ever met. And we used to joke, like, what should we throw him at? Like, and he went and became a doctor because I remember asking him, I was like, you could be a billionaire. Why are you doing this? And he was like, 'cause God put me here to care for people. I'm like, you're a good person. But like, we were like, what's like the one thing we'll call him Bob? We're like, what's the one thing we throw Bob at? We were like, I bet we could get him to solve JFK. This was like 2012. We were like, I bet we could. And he dove into it. I think he read all these books in like one semester. He could read a zillion pages an hour. And his conclusion after like 6 months of like, giving it the college try was there isn't a file to find. The smoking gun was never written down or it was destroyed immediately. And that was his, and it's not that, it's not that he's infallible, but he was like, there isn't a missing puzzle piece that if we just find it, he was like, it was destroyed, which makes sense. It's what you would do.
Like I said, it involved so many people. So you had loose and these secret societies and the old kind of Brahmins from the East are involved. I mean, the Kennedys were really seen as insiders, but also outsiders.
Well,
Like they're involved in,
they were fucking cocky new money, and they were
yeah, they're nouveau
bootlegging. Yeah,
riche,
it wasn't.
Catholic Irish, which is not good.
No, yeah, it was you're pigs. Yeah, I say that as an Irish person. You're going into like old blue blood wasp money that controls the world that just won World War II. They're carving up the planet, and you're coming in there going, "Let's give peace a chance." Now, blow
Be
the
nice to
hell.
black people,
Yeah, now
give a little bit of power.
kill this guy, kill this
Yeah.
man.
Yeah. I mean, Dulles was involved in like plots to kill Hitler. Like, so he's there in Switzerland with this woman I mentioned earlier,
I mean,
who's best friends with Ruth Paine. So they're trying to kill a really formidable killer. Like, Hitler believed in political mass murder. He was a mass murderer, like a killer of whole races and stuff. And they're trying to kill him. And that was 44. We know it as Operation Valkyrie.
uh,
Dulles is very involved. The guy who did it, like Wiesener or something, Dulles was in on that. So this is a guy who had this kind of experience. He knew what he was doing. It was a pretty good plan. It should have been pulled off. They just moved you
we're
know, they
we're talking about like the 96 Olympic Dream Team. We're talking about all these
yeah,
players:
yeah.
Shaq,
Yeah.
Kobe, Larry Bird, Stockton, Michael Jordan. And then we're now talking about a mysterious game there's poor lighting, so you couldn't make out who any of the players were, but some team managed to score 150 points. We're going, but we know all about like the 96 Dream Team and the 96 Bulls and all of them. And then let's just imagine there's this game with poor lighting where you can't make out who the players are. That's who the players are. And yeah, they scored 150 points. I wonder who it is. It was probably that team with Larry Bird and Shaq and Kobe
Yeah.
Bryant and Michael Jordan. So we're talking about all these individual players, and then there's this mystery. And it's like, well, who do you think did it? You have these guys who are the most equipped on the planet. Who do you think it is?
They won the war. All
It's,
came out. They're all these,
yeah,
yeah.
Masters of the Universe.
Yeah, Willoughby and LeMay. I mean, they destroyed Korea. I mean, they overthrew they had been overthrowing countries. So it was Arbenz,
All in the
Guatemala,
50s. Yeah, sure.
Mossadegh. Um, what else? I mean, what was leading? Oh, Congo, right?
Yeah.
I mean, those are the ones that we know. They were fixing elections in Italy. against the communists.
Commies, yeah.
You have to remember that's in the environment of the godless communists. So there was a much more Christian country back then. So fighting against the communists was a-okay and on board. So I think uh, I think it's interesting to see it in that context. Just like the world controllers were there. Bush is around, who later became president. You got Dulles. You got his brother still alive. You've got Johnson. You've got Hoover. You've got like this incredible gallery of just hardcore intelligent jackals, like who are around Kennedy, like he literally is surrounded by like credible figures, you know. They tried to do Cuba and it just didn't work. Kennedy wasn't on board. Anyway,
It's
so
it's just it's boggling.
it's real. The real history is really the real incredible. Like the fake history, the fiction of that what we've been told is even more incredible. That they literally pull part of it. Their thing was the propaganda to just constantly lie and keep it going for decades. Like, is really. I mean, the whole '60s history is fake. It's just complete fiction. It's a Hollywood tale, and they had the resources to do it. That's like one of the things people can't comprehend is like the just in gargantuan, colossal amount of resources they were able to use to pull these things off. You know, the money was not an object.
Yeah,
So all
it
that
is.
dark money and the classifications fair. You say secrecy is repugnant to free society. It's all classification.
Yeah,
Some
I
guys
mean,
are argue
even
that our reality, a third of our reality is classified.
yeah,
So
yeah, no, I've heard the number half of U.S. history is not no, but I mean, yeah, you look at somebody like a Bezos or a Musk, and I go, yeah, they could put together something big. You know, they could if you really wanted to, they could hire. You know, they could put out movies, books. They could put together operations, and those are billionaires. What
yeah,
happens when you are the one printing the money, and then not only that, you also have a monopoly on violence, meaning you can just classify things and go, you're not allowed to know. National security. Anything is possible. Unlimited money, and you can, at the barrel of a gun, say if you talk about this, it's treason. You can do anything. You do anything.
it's still happening,
And
right?
that's the other
I
thing is
think
it
I
never
think that
ended.
classification never that this whole Obama thing where they it was a huge resource, right? This thing against Trump to
Yeah.
paint him as a Russian asset. It's all fake. It went to the very top, and then they classified it, so nobody could ever really see
Yeah.
the clarity until Tulsi Gabbard got into power and like, okay, this is what they did. They lied about everything, but they put all the resources, the government behind it. So you had this propaganda, assault, propaganda strafe bombing or whatever, Stuka bombing over
It
and
is
over and over again. So people actually believed it.
it
It's
is
all fake.
surreal because we saw the JF we in hindsight we can see the JFK thing where they succeeded and then just smeared it and clouded it for decades. And now we're seeing like the alternative universe of like, well, what if it didn't work? How would it look like? And what if the guy survived? And what if they got back in power and they started unrest? So it's almost like we saw one version of it, and now we're seeing timeline B. Like,
Yeah.
what? Just a novelty. Like, what if it didn't work? It's almost like the universe is like, we served up A, we did that. Now we're gonna serve up B, and B is shaping up to be equally fantastic.
I think it's really interesting because people say they always say JFK is a turning point, and they're right because what it did is it showed that these guys in the government could classify all their nefarious deeds, and the public will never know. So 9/11, COVID, the conspiracy against Trump. Trying to think what else happened in the 80s. Probably the World Trade Center bombing of 93, a lot of the crazy stuff that happened in Oklahoma City, right? That was all PacCon type
Timothy
stuff.
McVeigh, yeah.
Yeah. So Timothy McVeigh said that he had something implanted in his brain. Do you ever hear that?
No, but I know he was.
Yeah.
I know he didn't.
He wasn't interviewed by Lewis Jolly and West. It was just West's underling.
Yeah, he.
So West was burnt out. He'd had too many interactions with like known assassins and crazy people. He's like, well, I'm all, why don't you just go, Bob? You go
Yeah,
talk to McVeigh. I'll pass the baton over.
yeah.
It goes all the way back. This stuff of the use of these psych people goes all the way back to Dulles in World War II of Ewan Cameron. The he could these guys were freaking brilliant, man. They still are writing up psych profiles on any important person in the United States. But that's what they would do. And it actually, Dulles in World War II got Ewan Cameron. This is the guy who did all the MK Ultra stuff at McGill. He was the head of the World Psychiatric Council. Like this is not Joe Blow who has a like office outside of Peoria, Illinois. They brought him in to like take care to um interview Hess. And Hess goes crazy and says, "My food's being poisoned."
Oh
And Ewan
yeah.
Cameron goes on to freaking start poisoning. I mean, I have a show next week. I don't want to. I don't want to. It's somebody whose family was involved in these experiments at McGill. This is one of the sleep room, and they actually drugged them. They brought out curare, which is one of the most toxic substances known to man, and tested it on these people. Like it literally is a paralyzing nerve agent where you become like it's like locked brain syndrome where your
Locked
body can't
in,
move,
yeah.
but your brain works. Yeah. No, that's what Dulles did. He brought in the bigwigs from a very, it was one of the secret techniques. He brought in the bigwigs from a very early age. And so almost a lot of these guys have had very intense secret, albeit secret psych evals or psych assessments. And it's actually kind of bled over. I don't know the total bleed over to Scientology, but Scientology does that as well, which is really creepy. It has this kind of element to it where you take a personality exam and then they keep the information on you so that they figure out your weak spot. Do you have mommy issues? Do you have daddy issues? Are you competitive outside the shadow of your brother? Do you feel
Yeah, and
too
then
small, too short, too tall? Do you like sex with dudes? Do you have something dark in your past? They get all that information on people. And
yeah.
so that's what they did with Hess, who was really a piece of work. Um, anyway, so that's the whole thing is like you'll see in these big events, like with big assassinations or something, all of a sudden magically appear will be some doctor of psychology or psychiatrist to show up. So and so this handling thing is very important because I think it's reflected in Man to bring it back to the Manchurian Candidate. That's what's happening in the Manchurian Candidate. He's literally handled by a communist doctor and then
Mm.
handled over to his American handler who turns out to be his mother. That's like the big reveal. So it crosses these it's kind of very smart. It crosses these political lines. They're actually kind of working together. And that's kind of one of the things about Oswald is like he's at a hospital in Minsk. He's in central, during the height of the Cold War. What the heck is he doing in the Soviet bloc? And then how does he come back and just resume a normal life?
Yeah. Just comes on back. Like, no, all right, never mind.
And we know Dulles is really tight, was tight with a German guy through like partially probably the Knights of Malta, but it was Hitler's kind of military intel specialist for the Eastern Bloc, and his name was Galen,
Yeah, I'm
Reinhard
Reinhard
Galen.
Galen, yeah.
So there's a lot more to this history, a lot of secret connections, a lot of things going on that a lot of historians didn't have access to or overlooked, or because of the internet, you can get a lot more variegation. You can see much more of the facets of these kind of players and people like that. People like Dulles, also nicknamed the Shark. Like that's
I didn't know that.
yeah, his nickname was the Shark. He said that people said that he had all the kind of characteristics of a man-eating shark. Like no empathy, nothing like that.
Black eyes, just
He had a
yeah.
club foot. You can see pictures of him walking his brother. He's walking with a limp, and he's like the mentality of a shark. And he's part of the Eastern elite at the very top. All
Yeah.
these clubs, WASPs. I think his parents are Presbyterian. The father was a Presbyterian minister in New York, Watertown, New York. So, I mean, Dulles, I mean, the great book is Talbot, The Devil's
David Talbot,
Chessboard,
yeah,
really
that
good.
was then
Talks about, there's a whole chapter on brain warfare, which kind of ties into this. But I think Talbot's book, and my critique of it is that it starts too late. It doesn't go into Dulles and Dulles Brothers going back to World War One, right? And Sullivan and Cromwell. I have to reread it, but there's a lot of things going on with Dulles and their networking and stuff like that that they're both really remarkable. And apparently they had that ruthless quality. They would just kill people. If they had decided you were in their way and you had to go, and you're just okay, well, let's make the final decision and operationalize it and take you out.
Yeah, there's a great book called I think it's called The Brothers about the Dulles
Yeah.
brothers. Yeah.
That's Kinzer too. I think the
Yeah,
Kinzer.
yeah.
Kinzer also wrote Gottlieb, right? So he also wrote the book,
Poisoner in
The
Chief. Yeah.
Poisoner in Chief, correct? And I think, according to my research, I have placed Gottlieb at Atsugi, very close to the time, if not during the time that Oswald is there.
You make your head spin.
Yeah. And when you start doing this overlook, like I had somebody on who was at Georgetown, which was another piece of this huge MK Ultra research thing. They just found almost like COVID, where they found pre-existing structures and turned them to nefarious aims.
Hmm.
And so that's what happened at Georgetown. They literally had a 3 million dollar investment to create a new part of the Georgetown. This is a Jesuit school, kind of, a lot of famous people come out of there, foreign service, stuff like that. It's crazy to create another adjacent wing to their hospital that they would use just to do experiments. And they said in the documents, I can bring up these documents, but the part of the purpose was also to enlist other doctors into their plan. So it wasn't just to find patients, it was also to get doctors to
Jesus.
work and grow the whole thing. And it's right there in the center of DC. And it was called the Geschichter Fund, but the woman who I talked to, it was a new doctor who also had kind of a normal practice. His name was Missior, and he put this out. I mean, the induction, she calls it induction instead of hypnosis, but like she had all the steps where they take you down a long corridor and put you into a different state, a very, deep state of relaxation and suggestibility. And this is very similar. Going back to William Joseph Bryan, I have the evidence of showing him how he would induce a what's called a hypnotic state or a brainwashing state where somebody could be hyper suggestible and post hypnotic suggestion. Like it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. But that's what they were doing. They were actually studying everything. There's different components. They were studying telekinesis. They were
Hmm.
looking at the Soviet Union, Stargate, all this other stuff. There was a lot of things. This was just one component, but what people don't understand is how vast it was because it's all secret. It was all secret. So you're seeing the vastness as different FOIA requests
Different
drop and
different pieces
people
of the
do,
elephant. Yeah.
yeah, they see how big it was, like the resources that were put to crack open the human brain.
My head's spinning. And I feel like I'm pretty well read on a lot of this stuff. Even just talking
I
about
challenge
well,
anybody to challenge any of my facts. Challenge them.
that's what they are, though. They're facts. There's nothing to challenge.
We haven't even gotten to the text yet. I haven't shown my I haven't shown my video of Clinton as a hypnotic subject yet. Can I bring that up?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Let me use the restroom.
Okay, go ahead.
We've already been cruising.
All right.
We will now get into it, as if we haven't already been into it.
There's a lot here, man. We may have to do another show because I think we've already done an hour. We haven't even gotten to the slides. I haven't even brought out the video
I
yet.
was gonna say, I mean, we've already been going an hour. We can call this a show and do another show.
Why not? Why not? We could probably, I could I have enough material to probably do four
Do,
90-minute shows.
do you want to do that? Because I don't want to like lessen the impact of this.
Let's end this and it'll overlap with the next one because this is interesting. This is my reading through the Manchurian Candidate. There's a lot of kind of information, but it's about Lewinsky as a spy. We know she was having a relationship with Clinton, and Clinton goes to Georgetown, right? Interesting
I'm just
overlap.
laughing that you and I just riffed for an hour on slide one.
I know we can call it like Manchurian
Oh, this was the
Candidate
prelude.
context and
Prelude.
background.
Yeah,
Yeah, prelude.
prelude, opening shot, opening salvo, opening score. All
So
right.
solitaire is a very important theme in the Manchurian Candidate. You'll
Yeah.
see this in the first sentence here on the first slide. A voice,
Yeah,
Raymond,
I
why don't
read
you
it.
pass the
Yeah.
time by playing a little solitaire? That was his code. And the motif is the Queen of Diamonds. And the reason why the hypnotist used the Queen is because Raymond has mommy issues. His father has passed away. He has a stepdad who's a senator, but his mom really is this Roy Cohn, emperor imperial person who's the real manipulator. And so that's why the hypnotist decided this because he knew it would have mental impact upon Raymond because of
Yeah.
his own psychological predisposition. In this intro, it says when Nixon needed to think, he picked up a legal pad and wrote outlines. Reagan composed letters. Clinton played solitaire. Okay. So Clinton is a solitaire player, right? And it's interesting when you see this amazing video, which I'm going to bring up right now. Watch. He's in some kind of weird state here. Have you ever seen this video of Clinton?
No. I feel like I've heard of this.
Some people have called this a different types of states, but it's almost like this is his real kind of personality. He turns it on, this kind of
Yeah.
Billy Boy type of thing, but this is somebody who caught it behind the scenes.
Devil's advocate, he's fucking exhausted, but I mean, he's such a charismatic person
Yeah,
that this is kind of a stretch. You know, I could see like this face on Trump. I can see Trump being like burned out, but Clinton was such like a bright kind of old boy that's
that was kind of his public persona, right? Good old boy and fun loving and that type of thing. But anyway, it's just an interesting overlap between like him playing solitaire and doing this, and then the context of the Manchurian Candidate, where the key kind of central, breakpoints are when Raymond Shaw's playing solitaire, which you'll see in the movie and the film. Yeah, but if you want to just
yeah.
wrap it
No,
up
we'll
in an
tap it
hour,
there. I was thinking, I was
that's
like,
fine
in
with
my
me.
mind, I'm like, I'm down to go. But I was thinking, I was like, we just went for, and it was a good hour, but it's just kind of funny. It's like, but that's to me, that's indicative of like just how rich. Because like you and I mean, what, a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. The thing is like this is all stuff that I had learned on my own because so many people had pointed it out as just how ridiculous this is all is. So it's fascinating that it's not even like you and I have been friends for 20 years and like we've been giving each other books. Like everything you and I are talking about, like I didn't know you knew Jefferson Morley. Like these are all independently verifiable. These are all rabbit holes we've gone down on our own. And you can't fake that. Like you and I just riffed on facts the same way like two baseball heads would talk about, batting averages back to the last 60 years. It's all factual. And it shouldn't be that we're talking about Manchurian candidates and assassinations. It shouldn't be factual, but it is. Phenomena by Annie Jacobson. That's another one that will melt your brain.
Check it out.
That 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 book was crazy.
She seems like a writer I would like all of her books actually, because
I've loved her books.
have you had her on your show?
No, and I've tried for years. because I first started listening to her before I started the podcast. Operation Paperclip, Area 51, First Platoon, um,
She has like a
Darpa's
man.
Brain, Pentagon, the Pentagon's
She
Brain.
has kind of a male sensibility, a man's sensibility, or
She also,
or
well, she
kind
has a
of
very sexy voice.
parapolitics or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, no, but
I've
she's
seen her on
great.
Rogan.
I love her stuff, man. I legitimately love her. But Operation Paperclip is probably my favorite of hers. Phenomena is probably the most eerie one. They're all kind of crazy in their own way, DARPA, blah, blah, and yeah, okay, yeah. Phenomena is the one that kind of not shook me, but has opened my mind more to more possible. You read about the history of DARPA, you read about how advanced, the Air Force is out at Groom Lake, and certain things you can extrapolate. You go, well, if they had this in the 60s, then they probably have this now. If we went to the moon here, then yeah, we probably do have a military base on the moon or what, all these things. Phenomena got to me because it was all this stuff we were doing with the brain and all the money we were throwing behind it and the efficacious results we were getting from it to where I go, oh, I really can't flippantly write off some conspiracies like, oh, you're a schizo. Because you learn about all that and you go, no, they were doing this in was it classified? No, they're doing this stuff in special access programs, which is what's reserved for like UFO reverse engineering on how to unlock the brain. And that the entire thing is about like, was it more than 50% effective? Because 50 you could always just say it's chance, guessing. But it wasn't. It was way more than that. Uh, that's the one that is the most eerie because it opens up possibilities. It'd be like if let's say right now, people listening to this was the first time they'd ever heard about any of this stuff, JFK, Dulles, whatever. Let's just say you've been living under a rock. It would rightfully kind of freak you out because you realize that all these systems are still in place. And so things recently, Trump, Ukraine, Russia, Gaza, Israel, COVID, Crossfire Hurricane, you look at all of this and go, oh, there probably is a bigger story to it. Phenomena did that for me because it was all stuff that there was like a ceiling to what I had taken as like Cold War fact and like Cold War goofiness. That kind of blew the ceiling apart. And so now you go, add 50 years of technological development to that. No part of me would even blink if it came out today that there is a team of 1,500 sleeper cells all across the planet who didn't know they were sleeper cells. If that came out today, provable, I'd go, yeah, 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 yeah. So for you, Mr. Ramsey, I would say read Phenomena by Annie Jacobson.
I'm looking at it right now, so to
That'll.
check it out.
I actually reached. Who is it? The Spoon. Yuri Geller. Is he still alive?
Yeah, Yuri Geller's still alive. He's
I
around on social media.
I
Yeah.
emailed him 2 years ago. He politely declined, but I sent him the episode I did with Dr. Dale Graff, who headed up the Stargate program, which was the CIA's remote viewing thing. He's way
Nice.
up there in age now, but I sent Yuri that, and he was. I could dig up the email, but it was something like very good, very good. He's like, I'll politely pass on your podcast, but very good. And I was like, that was so cool just to hear back from him.
It's nice. At least it's nice when they say no,
Oh, that's the
That's what
best,
I've
man.
told other
That's a
people. Like, at least
victory,
just say no. Like,
dude.
sometimes I'll send out the emails. Like, I wonder if they even just got my email.
I do
You
not
know,
even. I'm not even kidding when I say if people say no, I take that as such a win. I'm like, thank you for the
me too.
reply.
Me too.
If I
Yes.
get somebody, that's a lottery. But just when people say thank you, but no thank you, I'm like, dude, thank you. Um,
Yeah, me too.
yeah, we'll pin it there. I'll shoot you a text that. I'll pull up my calendar. We'll find out.
Yeah, yeah. We got
We'll-
another two shows if you want to do it. I got tons of information. I got a ton of videos too, and I think you'll find it interesting because now you're aware in your mind like all these other assassins. You'll see why the book and the film is really important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No, we can do as many as we want. I'm in no
Okay, cool.
rush. I
All right.
stack episodes. All right.
Peace.
Next
Till
time,
next time.
everybody,
All right.
we'll get into the presentation. Go into the description, follow his Twitter, go grab his books on Amazon. Go check out his podcast, William Ramsey Investigates. And yeah, I appreciate it, man. Until next time.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you.
brother.
Thanks for
Take it
having me.
easy, guys.